Welcome to all of you, Madam Speaker, Your Excellencies and Ambassadors, members of the Diplomatic Corps, members of Parliament, representatives of the Swedish government, friends of Rwanda, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Left Party, the Swedish African Parliamentary Network, and the Embassy of Rwanda in Sweden, headed by Her Excellency Ms. Diane Gasumba, I extend a warm welcome to each and every one of you gathered here at the Swedish Parliament today, as we solemnly mark the 30th commemoration of the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. It is a privilege to stand before you in solidarity with the Rwandan people and to honor the memory of the lives that are lost during one of the darkest chapters in human history. 3 decades ago, the world witnessed unimaginable horrors as ethnic tensions erupted into violence, leading to the senseless massacre of hundreds of thousands of innocent men, women, and children. The genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda serves as a painful reminder of the consequence of hatred, intolerance, and indifference. It is a stark testament to the catastrophic failure of the international community to intervene and prevent such atrocities from occurring. A couple of days ago, the French President Emmanuel Macron admitted and said that France and its Western and African allies could have stopped Rwanda's genocide, but did not have the will to halt the slaughter of an estimated almost 1 million people. So the genocide in Rwanda was as a result of human indifference. The so-called good people watched and let it happen. Today and every day, we must continue to remind ourselves about the greatest crime in humanity, the crime of genocide that saw people massacred simply because they were black, simply because they're African, like the Herero people in Namibia, like the Jewish people in Germany, the Tutsis in Rwanda, and now as we speak, the Palestinians in Gaza. These hideous crimes did not happen overnight. They began early with scapegoating and dehumanization. Every step of this process is made possible by the indifference shown by good people, good leaders, and so-called democratic institutions and societies. We watch and allow the worst crimes against humanity to take place, and then we say the words, never again. When we say never again, we must mean it. Remembrance without resolve is hollow. Awareness without action does not prevent these atrocities from happening again. And our silence encourages persecution, and it never helps the victims. Today, as we gather to reflect on the tragedy that unfolded in Rwanda, we must also reaffirm our commitment, not only in words but in action, to ensuring that such atrocities never happen again. We must strive to build a world where respect for human dignity, equality, and justice prevail. We must stand united against all forms of racism, discrimination, bigotry, and violence, and work tirelessly to promote peace, reconciliation, and healing. As a member of the Left Party, the person of African descent, and the chair for the Swedish Africa Parliamentary Network, I believe in the power of solidarity, empathy, and collective action. We stand in solidarity with the survivors of Rwandan genocide, and we pledge to amplify their voices, honor their resilience, and support their quest for truth, justice, and reconciliation. Let us use this occasion not only to remember the past, but also to recommit ourselves to building a better future, a future where the lessons of history guide us towards a world free from the scourge of genocide and mass atrocities. Thank you very much, and welcome to this commemoration ceremony.
Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here today to pay tribute on behalf of the Swedish Parliament to the victims of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsis in Rwanda. The 6th of April marks 30 years since the beginning of the horrific events in modern history. At some points in the crisis, as many as 10,000 people were butchered in a day. Having been in Rwanda, met the dialogue on reconciliations, met different people in Rwanda, visited the Kigali Genocide Memorial, I know that the memory of a genocide speaks to us in so much more ways than the number of people murdered, even if they are horrific in itself. Numbers are in a scale impossible to process, but also tend to transform individual destinies into something abstract by the years passing. The memories of the victims, as well as the bravery of those trying to save victims, serve as a reminder that every single life lost during those 100 days of senseless violence is irreplaceable. I imagine that today, as well as those months ahead, is a difficult reminder for many of those among us who lost loved ones during the genocide and have had to live with the pain for 3 decades, all with memories of those horrific days. I'm thinking of those who managed to run to the hills and hide from the perpetrators, or how, once the killings had ceased, they realized that even though they might be able to return to their homes, there was no way of going back to the lives they used to live, that they had to try to build a new existence as individuals, as citizens. I'm also thinking of those who today find themselves living next door to someone who killed members of their family and having atoned for their crime, have returned to their village, or how difficult yet essential reconciliation is. While it is important that impunity does not prevail, reconciliation must also take place. And I'm thinking of those who happened to be abroad during the genocide, how they feared for their families back home and felt frustration that the world did not manage to prevent or stop the genocide. And I marvel at how many of them have been able to transform these feelings into a fierce determination to work relentlessly to promote tolerance and develop democracy, thereby preventing future conflicts and crimes against humanity. It is my firm belief that the best way to promote peace, tolerance, and security is to stand up for democracy and human rights, meaning learning from history, not staying in the history, but learning from the results of the oppression of freedoms, of allowing opposition or not allowing opposition, and developing an inclusive dialogue with respect, trying to build our societies, goes for all of us, more inclusive, not only by arranging elections on a regular basis, but also by seeing to it that everyone has the possibility to register as a candidate, run for office, and be elected. For our societies to develop in a peaceful manner, we need to be able to resolve issues in our parliamentary assemblies all over the globe. Ladies and gentlemen, my thoughts are with those who were killed, but also with the survivors and their children, some of whom were not even born at the time of the genocide, but have been affected through parents who have had to move forward and rebuild their lives with the images of atrocities imprinted on their memories. On this day of remembrance, I am astonished by the amount of loss of grief we humans are able to sustain and yet keep on striving. We might not be able to rebuild what we have lost, but that doesn't stop us from trying to build a new life, a better community, and a sustainable world. This is how we honor the victims of the genocide. Thank you.
Our next speaker is, in fact, one of the hosts, or the main host of this event, who is the party leader for the Left Party. I'm more than honored to belong to the party that decided that this day is an important day to host in the Swedish Parliament. So please join me in welcoming the party leader of the Left Party, Ms. Nooshi Dadgostar.
Thank you so much for allowing me to be here and give you this speech, and thank you so much to Malcolm Omulu for this initiative. KWIBUKA, meaning to remember, is an occasion to reflect on the extreme crimes against humanity, to honor those who will never return and the families who will forever mourn their absence. It is a day to acknowledge that each of the nearly 1 million lives lost matter and continues to matter deeply. After the genocide in Rwanda against the Tutsi during the late 1990s, an international debate was ignited regarding how genocide, war crimes, ethnic cleansing, and crimes against humanity can be prevented. The international community had failed to prevent and halt the events that claimed many lives and involved extreme violations of human rights. We envision a world marked by justice and equality, where every individual enjoys equal opportunities and freedoms to pursue their aspirations. We aspire to see a world that respects the limits of our planet, fostering a life free from poverty, injustice, violence, racism, and ensuring autonomy over our bodies and freedom to love openly. We seek a world where our children grow up in safety, with the necessary knowledge and support to achieve their fullest potential. Sweden shall be that voice for solidarity, democracy, and human rights worldwide. And democracy and human rights serve as protection for the most defenseless individuals, fostering a more equal sharing of power, providing people with the opportunity to influence their living conditions. We must remember, not solely because the history demands it, but because it is our duty to uphold and protect human rights, ensuring that all can live with dignity and that silence never becomes an option again. While the wounds may never fully heal, each of us bears the responsibility to do everything within our capabilities to prevent such tragedies from recurring. The international community must not remain passive spectators. We must take action. Every state, every nation and government carries an international obligation to rise to this challenge. In Rwanda, the international community was too late and did too little. Friends, let that be a lesson for us now and for the future. We cannot allow that to happen again. In less than 3 months during 1994, an entire nation, and indeed the world, were irreversibly transformed, and we will never forget. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lucy Agoston, party leader for the Left Party, for those words. Our next speaker is Ms. Josine Kanamugira. Josine Kanamugira is the president of the Survivors Association, KWIBUKA, Sweden. And Ms. Josine Kanamugira represents the Association of Genocide Survivors, KWIBUKA, Sweden, since the start of the association in 2022. Ms. Josine Kanamugira is a survivor of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. She witnessed the genocide at a young age, and she lost almost everyone during the genocide. Since 2007, Ms. Josine Kanamugira has been working at the Swedish International Development Corporation, SIDA, as a program administrator. And today, we will be hearing some highlights from friends. But Ms. Josine would tell us a little bit about the experience of being a part and parcel of this terrible crime, genocide, being a victim of genocide. So please, let's hear, first of all, before we go further to the list of speakers that we have, let's allow another person who is Francois Motti. Give me a second, I think there's a mixture in the program here. Yes, we'll have a remarks from the genocide survivor and the president of the KWIBUKA Association, Ms. Josine Kanamugira. And after that, we'll also have a testimony from Francois Motti, who's also a genocide survivor from the Rwandan community in Sweden. So these testimonies hopefully will give us an idea as to what experiences people had during this terrible time in Rwanda. And please take some time to listen carefully and register the things that they're saying, because this is not a movie, this is real. This has happened, and these are real experience by real people. And it's important not only to listen to it, but to learn from it and make sure that it never happens again. And not, as I mentioned, only to say never again in words, but in action. Make sure that we never watch something like this happen again. So with those words, please allow me and help me to invite Ms. Yassine KWIBUKA on the stage.
Let's start with a minute of silence. Thank you. Your Excellencies, ambassadors, representatives of your respective countries, honorable members of Swedish Parliament, distinguished guests, friends of Rwanda, Rwandans, fellow survivors of 1994 genocide against Tutsi. On behalf of KWIBUKA Sweden, allow me to express my gratitude to all of you joining us in the 30th commemoration of 1994 genocide against Tutsi. This anniversary is a significant milestone anniversary. Please join me in appreciating the gravity of this moment in the following reflection. The first reflection I want to mention is the matter of numbers. The phrase 30 years signifies experience 1 year repeated 30 times. For us, survivors, 30 years resides within our memories, emotions, and the way we exist. Our trauma persists like a nightmare, even though we are at different stages of level in our journey. For some survivors, those last years feel like a mere 30 seconds nightmare that they are hoping to wake up from. For others, it may feel like 3 minutes, a few hours of bad dream. Doesn't not feel really yet at all. 30 years is not 30 years in our traumas, in our everyday lives, in our experiences. But at the same time, we have those who have accepted that the 30 years equals 30 years, and the reality continue. They struggle with understanding, and at the same time they're processing what happened. Some of us have successfully adopted the life and they're actively involved in policy making, preserving memory, and combating genocide ideology. We, KWIBUKA Sweden, we acknowledge each survivor and wishes them to fully embrace the second chance of life. The second point is words or language. The scale of our tragedy defies language. At the time, we lack the appropriation language, adequate vocabulary, correct grammar, to name our experience. In the beginning, we could then find the right words, you could say that people are dead. But people were never dead, they were killed. We didn't have the proper name. We start with genocide, but now we have 1994 genocide against Tutsi. The third brings me to the denial, genocide denial. It feels like we genocide survivors cannot catch a break to mourn our beloved ones, as the denied ideology remains our burden. This was not different this year. We tried to mourn for our loved ones, and at the same time fighting the deniers. The last point is the international community and the Swedish photographers. The international community in general, Sweden in particular, we extend our gratitude and recognize that we extend our gratitude to those who organized that the genocide against Tutsi could have been prevented. We thank you. Thank you. However, we cannot miss to note that some of the international community and around the diaspora still engage in a form of denialism. Let me conclude how we would like to move forward and how we move forward as KWIBUKA together with you, friend of us, and allies. Our first commitment will continue to be preservation of memory by continuing to organize commemoration events. So please join us again next year. Our second objective is and will keep being education and re-education to prevent atrocities like genocide against Tutsi from happening again. A contribution to this will be a memorial in Sweden that could be used for public education and for memory. Thirdly, we continue to fight against genocide ideology and denialism. Your support would be valuable in one important aspect, to make sure that at least you say 1994 genocide against Tutsi. That's the only name for what happened. Last but not least, we continue to heal from our traumas, and thank you for always being there for us. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to finish by thanking every one of you for coming to remember with us. Let us commit to making never again reality and fight the genocide ideology. Thank you.
So thank you so much for that. The next person on our agenda that will come forward and give us a testimony is called Francois Motti, a genocide survivor in the Rwandan community here in Sweden. So please join me in welcoming Francois Motti on stage. Is Francois here? Sorry, sir.
Françoise will speak in Kinyarwanda, I will translate in English.
Nitwa Françoise Monti, umunyarwandakazi wavukiye mu Rwanda akahakurira kugeza ubwo Jenoside yakorewe Abatutsi 1994 yera. Ndashimira abantu bose bari hano baje kwifatanya natwe no kuba bafashe umwanya wo kuntega amatwi ngo bumve ibyabayeho ibyo bihe bikomeye.
My name is Françoise Monti, a Rwandan woman born and raised in Rwanda, living in Rwanda until the genocide perpetrated against the Tutsis in 1994. I would like to thank you all for being here, for giving me a chance to give my testimony and for listening to me.
Ubuhamya bwanjye ndashaka kubutanga mu bice bitandukanye. Ndashaka mbere gutangirira ku buzima bw'umututsi hagati y'igihumbi kimwe magana cyenda mirongo icyenda na kane.
I will give my testimony in different stages. I will start with the life of the Tutsis in between 1990 and 1993. 94.
Umututsi yarabayeho nk'igicibwa, umututsi yarabayeho nabi, umututsi yaratotejwe 1990, umututsi yarishwe, yarakubiswe, yagizwe ikimuga azira yuko afite isano n'inyenzi Inkotanyi.
The Tutsis from 1990 were living in fear. They were persecuted, they were killed, they were accused of being Inkotanyi, called cockroaches, and being asked to show their national ID everywhere they went.
Aho umututsi yajyaga hose bamuvanaga mu modoka bakamubaza carte d'identité, kubera ko icyo gihe amakarite d'identité yacu yari arimo ubwoko umuhutu, umututsi, umutwa. Bakavana abatutsi mu modoka kubera ko babatukaga ngo bagiye gusanga Inkotanyi bakorana.
The national identity cards of that time used to show ethnic belongings. It would say Tutsi, Hutu, or Twa. So people were being removed from their vehicles and thrown out because they were accused of trying to join the Inkotanyi rebels.
Izo bariyeri aho zabaga ziri hose mu gihugu nta nubwo ari abasirikare cyangwa interahamwe gusa bahagarikaga abantu babaza amakarite d'identité, ahubwo hari harimo n'abasirikare b'Abafaransa bari buzuye mu gihugu, nabo bahagarika Abanyarwanda, batandukanya Abanyarwanda, batandukanya ubwoko bw'Abanyarwanda.
It wasn't only the soldiers and Interahamwe, the Rwandan soldiers and Interahamwe and those roadblocks. It was also the French soldiers. They would arrest people, ask for their IDs, and separate Rwandans.
Ubu noneho ngiye kuvuga ku bya Jenoside yakorewe Abatutsi 1994 itangira.
I will now speak about what happened to the Tutsis when the genocide against the Tutsis started in 1994.
Hari mu ijoro ryo ku itariki 6 ishyira itariki 7 z'ukwezi kwa kane.
On the night of the 6th to the 7th of April 1994,
byari mu ijoro mu masaa moya,
it was around 7 p.m.
Twari mu rugo tureba televiziyo, hanyuma tureba ibiganiro byo kuri televiziyo, twumva na radio.
We were at home watching TV and listening to the radio.
Hanyuma mu kanya gatoyo twumva ibiganiro byose bivuye kuri televiziyo, hagiyeho muziki classique.
Suddenly all the programs were cut and they started playing classical music.
Ntabwo twari tuzi impamvu, tangira kwibaza icyabaye.
We didn't know why and we wondered what happened.
ariko mu kanya gato haciye itangazo rivuga yuko indege ya Perezida Habyarimana bayiharimo.
Then an announcement came saying that President Habyarimana's plane was shot down.
Ko amakuru arambuye bari buyatubwire mu mwanya mutoya.
And we were told we should wait for incoming further details.
Twakomeje gutegereza kumenya uko bimeze.
So we waited.
Ariko ubwoba bwari bwinshi.
Mostly we were terrified.
Twari tuzi neza igikurikira iyo nkuru ko ari urupfu rw'Abatutsi nta gisibye.
We knew for sure that the next step for Tutsis was to be killed.
Ntabwo byatinze rero twaranyugaho nabashe kuryama ubwoba bwari bwose twibaza igikurikira.
We couldn't sleep that night. We were just really scared.
Twatangiye guhamagarana abo tuziranye hirya no hino tubabaza uko bimeze iwabo.
We started calling around friends and relatives and asking them how it was in their neighborhoods.
Twabashe kumenya ko muri iryo joro hari abantu bamwe batangiye kwicwa.
And we got to know that that same night certain people were already being killed.
Mu gitondo cya kare ku itariki ya 7 nyine.
So in the morning of the 7th of April,
abantu imbunda amasasu aremereye abantu birukanka imiborogo amarira mu nzira hose byari mbese byari chaos.
we started hearing people running, people screaming, we heard gunfire, we heard people crying for help, and it was utter chaos and we didn't know what to do.
Ntabwo twatuzi icyo gukora mu yaraza aho ajya ahungira.
We didn't know where to seek refuge.
Hanyuma twamaze muri icyo gitondo twamenye ko abantu bari babashije guhungira mu bafrere Josephite biremera bari babishe.
We got to know that the people who had tried to seek refuge at the St. Joseph Convent in Remera had been killed.
Hanyuma abagore muri quartier abagore n'abana badutegeka kujya mu babikira ba Thérèse de Calcutta atari kure y'iwacu aho narindi.
So in our neighborhood, women and children were advised to seek refuge in the nearby St. Teresa of Calcutta Sisters Convent. It wasn't far away from my home.
Abagabo baravuze bati aho tujya hose baraza baratwicire.
The men were sure they were going to die wherever they went.
Hanyuma bibazaga yuko abagore n'abana batabica nkuko byagiye biba mu ntambara nkuko byagiye biba mu bwicanyi bwabayeho imbere hose.
But they were sure that the women and children would be spared, which had been the case in the previous killings of the Tutsis.
Kubera ko muri 1959 aho hose Abatutsi baricwaga ariko akenshi bicaga abagabo.
Previous killings of the Tutsis in 1959, 62, 63, 66, and 73, they were always targeting men and never women and children.
So niyo mpamvu bumvaga ko nidusohoka tukayisanga abandi bagore hapfa abagabo cyangwa bakabasha kwirwanaho ariko twe wenda turi gukire abagore n'abana.
So the belief was that if we can hide the women and the children, the men could either die, defend themselves, or somehow survive.
Njyewe aho nari kwa musaza wanjye.
I was living at my brother's house.
Hari mu Kiyovu I Kigali mu capital.
It was in the neighborhood of Kiyovu in the city center of Kigali.
Twari abantu nk'abarindwi mu nzu abagabo 4 n'abakobwa 3.
We were 7 people in that house. There were 4 men and 3 women and girls.
Abakobwa 2 n'umwana.
There were 2 women and 1 little child.
Basaza banjye baravuze ati mugende twe turanga turavuga turafana namwe.
My brothers told us to go and hide, and we refused. We said we will die together.
Jewe nabonaga ni hahandi ntaho tuzakirira tuzapfa nagomba gupfana nabo ariko baranyangiye bantegeka kuva muri urwo rugo ku ngufu.
I was sure there was no hope of survival. I did not see why we should separate and die separately. But my brothers said no. They said you have to leave and go fight hiding.
Twaragiye tujya muri abo babikira b'abakaributa.
So we went to the convent, to the sisters of Calcutta, to hide.
Batwakiriye neza badushyira mu cyumba duteraniramo abagore n'abana, abagabo babashyira mu kindi cyumba ahandi.
They welcomed us and put us in one common room, women and children, and then they hid the men in another room.
Abagabo bigeze ku itariki ya umunsi ukurikiraho ababikira barabwira bati mugende kuko bazaza babashaka bice n'abagore.
But the next day, the sisters, fearing that when Interahamwe come to look for men, they would also kill the women, they asked the men to go find shelter somewhere else.
Ababikira nabo bari bafite icyizere cy'uko abagore n'abana batazicwa.
The sisters also believed that women and children would be spared.
Ariko siko byari bimeze, abantu bose barishwe nta utoranyije.
But it wasn't the same this time. Everybody was killed.
Abo bagabo bagiye basubiye inyuma ku itariki umunsi ukurikiraho muri quartier baratewe kwicwa ku itariki ya 10.
So the men went back to the neighborhood, to their homes in the neighborhood, and on the 10th of April 1994, they were attacked to be killed.
Benshi barapfuye abandi barirukanka.
Many of them died. Some of them were able to run away.
Hanyuma umunsi ukurikiraho itariki ya 11.
And then on the next day, the 11th of April,
FPR inkotanyi yari igerageza kwinjira mu gufasha irebe ko yakiza abantu.
As the RPA army was trying to enter and save some people.
Hanyuma barangije mu gitero cyabo abantu bose barirukanka ubwo abandi babonaho kongera guhunga bagera Sainte Famille bagera no bakaributa.
So the people who survived that attack were able to hide at Sainte Famille, a church, and at the convent where we were.
Ku itariki 15 z'ukwezi kwa kane nibwo baje kutwica mu bakaributa.
On the 15th of April, that's when they came to attack us at the convent.
Hanyuma baradusohora abagore, basohora n'abagabo bari barimo 25 barabica.
They took us all out. They also found the 25 men who were hiding in another room and took them outside to kill them, and they killed them.
Baravuga ngo abagore bazabica undi munsi.
They said they were coming back another day to kill the women.
Umunsi ukurikiraho baraje bica umugore n'umukobwa w'imyaka 15.
The next day they came and killed one woman and her 15-year-old daughter.
Umunsi ukurikiraho baraza bica undi mugore.
And then they came back and killed another woman the next day.
Hagati aho hazaga interahamwe zigatwara abagore zikabajyana kubarepinga.
In the meantime, every day Interahamwe militia came to pick women to go and rape them.
Bamwe bakabagarura abandi bakabica.
Sometimes they brought them back, and sometimes they killed them.
Hanyuma byageze ku itariki ya 18 ababikira basanga batabashije kutugumana nta burinzi bafite nta mujandarume wari uhari.
And then on the 18th of April, the sisters decided to send us away because we did not have any protection.
Haje abajandarume batatu batujyana Sainte Famille.
3 policemen came and took us to the Sainte Famille church.
Sainte Famille hariyo impunzi zitandukanye abahutu n'abatutsi bavanze.
In that church there were refugees, both Hutus and Tutsis.
Tugezeyo twageze mahirwe tugerayo ntabwo byari byoroshye ko twagezeyo.
Luckily we got there. It wasn't easy, but we got there.
Tugeze Sainte Famille ubuzima bwari bubi cyane, nta hygiene yari mbi, ibyo kurya nta bihari, abana bararwaye barapfa.
It was an unsanitary place to be. People died because of unsanitary conditions.
hanyuma ubwo twahamaze nk'ibyumweru nka bibiri nza kumenya yuko hari umusaza wanjye wageze muri Hotel de Mille Collines.
After about 3 weeks in that church, I got to know that my brother had survived and was hiding at the Hotel de Mille Collines.
Hanyuma yohereza umuntu umujandarume n'undi muntu baza kudutwara uko twari batatu ko twavuye mu rugo.
And he was able to send somebody to pick us up, the 3 of us who had left the home.
Twagiye muri Mille Collines, ubuzima buba bwiza gatoya, umuntu yabonaga aho ajya akaraba akajya muri toilette nzima, akabona aho ateka icyayi, akabona aho aryama.
The life in the Hotel de Mille Collines was slightly better, at least on the sanitary side.
Ariko ntabwo byavanaga ahubwo dushobora gupfa umunsi wari wose.
But we knew we could die anytime.
Icyiza cyaho nuko hari minwari.
The only good thing was that we were protected by the United Nations UNAMIR.
Hanyuma hagati mu kwezi kwa gatanu twagiye twumva baratubaza abashaka kujya kuri kote ya FPR Inkotanyi zone yayo n'abashaka kujya kuri kote ya guverinoma y'u Rwanda bakwiyandikisha.
And then in the middle of May, we were told that those who wanted to go to the south of Rwanda to join the former government could be taken there, and the ones who wanted to join the RPA in the east, in Kabuga, could also be taken there.
FPR yari yamaze gufata ibice binini byo muri Kigali, ifite stade Amahoro, hariyo impunzi nyinshi zivanze abahutu n'abatutsi.
At that time, the RPA had already captured big parts of the city, including the Amahoro Stadium, where there were different groups of refugees, both Hutus and Tutsis.
Hanyuma icyo gihe FPR yakoze negociation na guverinoma yitwa kubera abanyarwanda, guverinoma y'abicanyi.
So the RPA was able to negotiate with the killer government.
Hanyuma bavugana yuko bemeranywa yuko bahana izo mpunzi izishaka kujya Igitarama zikurikiye guverinoma y'abicanyi zikajyayo, izishaka kujya muri zone FPR zikajyayo, ariko icyo gikorwa kigakorwa hagati yo guhana abo bantu kigakorwa n'amakamyo ya minwari.
So they were able to negotiate an exchange of refugees. They would take the ones in Amahoro Stadium who wanted to go south to join the killer government. And then they would take another truck full of refugees from Mille Collines and Sainte-Famille who wanted to go east to join the RPA, and they would then exchange them.
Amakamyo yahuriraga ku Kimihurura harimo abantu bangana abavuye muri Mille Collines n'abavuye stade Amahoro bajya Igitarama, tugahurira ku Kabindi, bamwe bagakomeza Kabuga abandi bakajya Igitarama.
So they would meet with an equal number of refugees in 2 different trucks, and they would exchange them so that the ones who wanted to go south were taken south and the ones who wanted to go east were taken east.
Ubwo twagize amahirwe igikorwa cyo kudutwara kiratangira, tubasha kugera I Kabuga.
We were lucky to be taken all the way to Kabuga in the east.
Ubwo aba Mille Collines barangiye bagerageje no kujya gutwara abantu bari muri za Sainte-Famille.
When they were done with evacuating the Mille Collines refugees, they also went to get the ones in the Sainte-Famille Church.
Ariko muri Mille Collines muri Sainte-Famille ntabwo byari byoroshye. Umupadiri wabo yicishaga abantu akanga ko hajyamo abagabo agashaka gushyiramo abagore n'abana, amakamyo yamara kubatwara interahamwe zikaza zikica abagabo.
The priest who was managing Sainte-Famille was not making it easy. He wanted to keep the men and then let the women go. Every time a truck went with the women and children refugees, he would call the Interahamwe to kill the men. And every time they came back, he would say, hide the bodies.
Ubwo minwari yagaruka abagabo babishoboye binginga minwari bashyiramo ku ngufu nabo abasha kugira bake barokoka bajya I Kabuga abasha kugikabuga.
This was all done with the help of the UN Assistance Mission to Rwanda, UNAMIR, and when they came back, some men were forcing the entry into the trucks to be taken to Kabuga.
Ubwo tugeze I Kabuga uwahageraga wese akabona umuntu umututsi ukiriho yarishimaga, byari ikimenyetso cy'uko tutagipfuye.
Reaching KWIBUKA was always a miraculous sign that one had survived, and seeing fellow Tutsis who hadn't died, we celebrated together.
Ndashimira inkotanyi zaturokoye abo babisha zakoze ibishoboka bamwe tubasha kubaho.
I thank the Inkotanyi that rescued us and gave us a chance to live again.
Nsubiye gatoya aho navukaga ku murenge witwa Gahanga hatari kure muri Kigali ku minota 20.
I would like to go back a little bit to my home village of Gahanga. It was just 20 minutes from the city center.
Hariyo mama wanjye n'abavandimwe banjye batatu n'abana babo, hariyo nyogokuru wanjye ubyara papa, hariyo abakuzine banjye hirya no hino, hariyo umuryango munini, ariko muri famiye yanjye na kuzine nabara abantu 35 bose bishwe nta n'umwe wavuye.
Of my 35 relatives, including my mother, grandmother, 3 of my siblings, and 3 of their children, and so many cousins, all 35 in Gahanga were killed. No one survived.
Igahanga hari agace gatuwemo n'abatutsi benshi babarirwaga hagati y'ibihumbi 5 na 6, ariko abantu baharokotse ntabwo bageze kuri 20.
Of the 6,000 Tutsis that called Gahanga home, only a dozen survived.
Ibyo byose nibyerekana yuko abo bantu bicwaga n'abantu bari abaturanyi babo bari barasangiye byose, ariko umunsi umwe barahagurutse barabica.
These are clear signs that it was their neighbors, the people who knew them, who killed them.
Mubabarire ubuhamya mbahaye nagerageje kubugabanya kuko umwanya wari mutoya.
I apologize that we have to shorten this because we don't have enough time.
Ariko ndashaka kurangiriza ku kintu kimwe.
I would like to make one last appeal.
Hari imvugo dukunda kugira ngo never again.
We often say after genocide, never again.
Iyo never again yaravuzwe nyuma ya jenoside y'abajuifu.
The words never again were pronounced at the end of the Holocaust.
Hanyuma yaho habaye jenoside y'abatutsi mu Rwanda, amahanga yose arebera.
And then they were said again after the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda.
Amahanga yose yarareberaga.
The whole world was watching while it happened.
Komisiyo ya minwari yari mu gihugu yari yarabivuze ntawadutabaye.
The UNAMIR had alerted the world, but nobody came to rescue us.
Ubu ndashaka kuvuga uyu munsi ko umututsi acicwa.
I would like to tell you that Tutsis are still being killed today.
Please, nitukomeze kuvuga never again ntacyo dukora ku batutsi bo muri Kongo barimo bicwa.
Please let us stop saying never again only theoretically. Let's put it in actions for the Tutsi of Congo who are still being killed.
Muri Kongo barica abatutsi baho kubera ko ari abatutsi kandi ari abakongomani.
The Congolese Tutsis are being killed today just because they're Tutsis.
Ni genocide irimo ikorwa uyu munsi ku batutsi bo muri Kongo.
There's a genocide happening on the Tutsis of Congo today.
Mbonye akanya ko kubwira abantu baraha bose twagize amahirwe yo kuza muri iyi ngoro y'abaswedwa.
We take this opportunity when we had a chance to come here to the Parliament of Sweden.
Hagira igikorwa tujye gukomeza kuvuga gusa never again kuko umunsi bye bizaba ntazongere kuvugwa ngo abantu byabaciyeho. Please.
Something needs to be done, please. Let's not say when it's all when the genocide has been committed and finished that we were not able to do something while we watched again. Uko
barimo kubica niko babishe mu Rwanda n'ababica umunsi n'abasize bisha abatutsi mu Rwanda.
They're being killed exactly the same way the Tutsis were killed in Rwanda. They're being killed by exactly the same people who killed the Tutsis in Rwanda.
Ababica muri Kongo n'abasize bica abatutsi mu Rwanda bafatanyije n'abakongomani kandi barica abakongomani b'abatutsi.
And the army of Rwanda are being held by Congolese to kill Congolese Tutsis today.
So ndagije bashimira umwanya mwampaye no kuntega amatwi.
I thank you for your time and thank you for listening to me.
Nizere yuko tugiye gukora ibishoboka kose iyi jenoside ntizongera kubaho.
And I hope we will all work together so that never again is real and there is never again a genocide.
Ko ibyashyirwa mu bikorwa hakaboneka ingamba zo kwikumira.
That we will put this in action and do all we can to stop it.
Ndashimira abari mu mwese.
Thank you. And please help me welcoming Lady Mire. Please, an applause. In this room who are friends of Rwanda, and we have invited some of these friends of Rwanda today to give us some form of testimony, thoughts, opinion on the highlights of Rwanda's journey from the tragic genocide against the Tutsis 30 years ago to today. Rwanda has made an amazing journey, and it's an example from the rest of the world to learn. I am originally from Gambia, and I know West Africa, we often talk about Rwanda, and I know it's the same thing in the entire African continent, seeing that journey that Rwanda has done. So we have invited these distinguished guests today to come out and give us their thoughts when it comes to the highlights of Rwanda's journey. And we'll start with His Excellency, the Ambassador of the Dutch Ambassador in Stockholm, Mr. Van Bent Losenrecht. Please, you're welcome.
For many years, during the run-up to KWIBUKA, I used to write speeches for my ministers about the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. Having been there in May 1994, and having been the first Dutch representative in Kigali after the Rwandan Patriotic Army defeated the Force Armée Rwandaise in July 1994, my ministers felt I could write their speeches from first-hand experience. This is the first time in 30 years I am speaking myself. I am doing this because I believe it is important to commemorate this unspeakable event. Every year again, and especially today, as we remember that the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda occurred exactly 30 years ago. I have been reluctant every year again to write these speeches. Memory of the unspeakable is something many Rwandans must live with. Even today, commemorating KWIBUKA opens deep traumas and psychological wounds. And though we may not like this, it is necessary for us to remember what happened. Early July 1994, Minister Jan Pronk of the Netherlands and me visited the camps around Goma in Zaire. The camps' names were Mugunga, Katale, Kibumba. Millions of people had already fled Rwanda. Most of the refugees had been pushed forward by the génocidaires, the leaders who had orchestrated the genocide. Many of the refugees were génocidaires themselves. The mood in the camps was one of grim suspicion. Young men were guarding the camps, checking on anyone going in and out. The leaders of the genocide controlled the refugees' lives. They controlled their food and water access and their access to health care. In a tent, we had a meeting with a group of leaders from Kigali, the former mayor, leaders of the Interahamwe, businessmen, municipal workers. The participants, all genocidaires, blatantly stated there had been no genocide, that the RPA had approached Kigali, where after the inhabitants, the supporters of the Habyarimana regime, simply defended themselves. And in the ongoing fighting, a lot of people had been killed. The speakers were talkative, but arrogant and extremely aggressive. They wanted us to believe the genocide was just a spontaneous outburst of violence. But my ministers wasn't having any of it, so we challenged all their statements. The mood quickly turned sour, with young men yelling at my boss, "Monsieur le Ministre, you've got it all wrong. It is us who are the victims. And you will see that when we do the final tally, you will see that more of us were killed than them." My minister had no patience with these genocide deniers, and he stated, "We cannot agree on the facts. This meeting is pointless, so I suggest we leave now." Our way out was frightening. I had never seen such determination and aggression. Even more, I was baffled by the speed with which the killers, already in July, had already formulated a narrative of denial and self-justification. While we entered our vehicles, the young guards looked like they wanted to murder us. In the West, some of us make the mistake of believing the genocide was spontaneous. That is not the truth. Rwanda has always been a well-organized country. The genocide had been planned months in advance, with massive imports of machetes from China, with paramilitary training camps for the Interahamwe, and with rehearsals and killings in the Tutsi-dominated areas south of Kigali. I am not a politician, I'm a diplomat, but in the previous speeches that I have written, I always wrote that we, the international community, have failed Rwanda and the Rwandans when the need is us most. In May 1994, the UN Security Council called for an extension of the UN force UNAMIR in Rwanda to 5,500 troops. Not one country was prepared to contribute. Several assessments have stated that such a force could have halted the genocide, and in that sense, we all have failed Rwanda and the Rwandans. Rwanda was therefore largely left to fend for itself during the genocide. As I said, the country was always well organized, and it is that same sense of organization that has made Rwanda into what it is today under President Paul Kagame. But it was a painful resurrection. Rwanda has had no other choice but to live with the consequences of genocide. Traditional courts, or gachachas, have forced perpetrators to face the victims of the families of their victims. And many killers have been reintegrated into society. This is painful. You have no idea. It is traumatizing, but there is no other way than to live with the open wounds, and all Rwandans know this. We must commend Rwanda for choosing this painful path. Among all the options that Rwanda had, this was the most peaceful one. We could learn a lot from Rwanda, not about overcoming sorrow and loss, as these are deep human emotions that leave a profound mark on all who survive. But we can learn about carrying on in the face of trauma and in the presence of those who cause trauma. This is also why we are here today, to pay tribute to the more than 1 million maybe Tutsi who fell victim to the cruel, inhuman, and ruthless annihilation at the hands of the genocide. To pay tribute to all the survivors and their children who are carrying on despite everything and who are building a better Rwanda, even if they realize that their wounds will never really heal. Life is not like that. Life is cruel. Life is bitter. Life is ugly for some. But somehow people manage and rebuild. And I will always admire Rwanda for setting an example of survival. Thank you.
Mr. Eugene Musaida. Mr. Eugene Musaida is a Rwandan Swedish and a human resource professional with an engagement in humanitarian work across the globe. He has been working for Medicine Sans Frontières for the past 30 years and in different capacities. Please, the floor is yours. Please give him a round of applause.
Your Excellency, Madam Ambassador, the young Shumba Ambassador of the Republic of Rwanda in Nordic countries, Right Honorable Speaker of Parliament, Honorable Members of Parliament, Excellencies, Head of the Diplomatic Representation in Sweden, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to share with you some of the historical steps that led to the genocide of in 1994. Colonialism exacerbated political and social divisions in Rwanda by using imagined differences between Twa, Hutu, and Tutsi as a basis for political, social, and civil rights. The political institutions of colonial and Rwanda First and Second Republic were shaped by a perspective that led to the racialization and ethnicization of political and social life in Rwanda. This became a powerful tool for political entrepreneurs to maintain power at all costs. It sanctified the divide between the Hutu and the Tutsi with the allocation of state-issued identity cards that included strictly defined categories of race, as opposed to ancient Rwanda, which allowed for the possibility of social mobility. From 1926 to 1931, Belgian colonial reform issued identity cards to Hutu and Tutsi in a way that legally established Tutsi as Hamites and Hutu as Bantu. Hutu and Tutsi became separate legal identities. The discourse of race was employed to emphasize the divergence between indigenous and alien. The transition from the monarchy to the republic from November 1959 to the Declaration of Independence on 1st July 1962 represents another critical period for understanding Rwanda's social and political polarization. They paved the way for the following. 1, indiscriminate mass killing, including the population, and impunity. 2, exile of a huge number of Tutsi and exclusion from public life of all Tutsis. 3, the north of the country against the south of the country. Anti-Tutsi pogroms by the states with the population routinely took place, banning and looting of their property, killing of their cattle, and hate speech dehumanized Tutsi as Inzoka, snakes, is soon an all too familiar aspect of Rwanda's political life. To give some example, between 5,000 to 8,000 Tutsi were killed in the Congo in 1963, which was representing about 10 to 20% of the total Tutsi population of this prefecture. These targeted killings of civilians went on throughout the Second Republic from 1973 to 1994. In 1991, 5,000 Bagowe Tutsi were murdered. And in 1992 and 1993, massive violence against Tutsi has not only been politically rewarded and socially accepted, but also legally backed. Between 1962 and 1991, 4 amnesty laws were enacted to guarantee impunity for such violence. Following political violence that raged in Rwanda in 1959 onwards, many people fled the country. However, the government discouraged mass repatriation and insisted that there was no more space in Rwanda to accommodate the refugee and accept their right to return home. In 1990, following that, in 1990, the Rwanda Patriotic Army launched a civil war from Uganda to force repatriation to ensure that refugees had the right to return in their country. The regime answered by attacking civilians, accusing them of supporting the Rwanda Patriotic Army. Zaire, currently Congo, and Belgian troops were dispatched to counter the Rwanda Patriotic Front offensive and evacuate foreign nationals. France aided Rwanda's army counterattack and targeted armament dispatched armament for 3 years. Within 3 days, the Habyarimana regime had incarcerated 10 to 15,000 alleged accomplices, all of them being Tutsis. Anti-Tutsi rhetorics increased in national politics, and acts of violence against civilians occurred before the Rwanda genocide. Public figures promoted the Hamitic myth that the Tutsi people were invaders from the north, from Abyssinia, currently Ethiopia, and which further fueled hostility toward them. The media also played a significant role in this radicalization by spreading hate speech through media outlets such as Kangura, a newspaper, and radio television, RTLM. These channels called on Hutu people to kill all the Tutsis. In addition, women in Rwanda were also targeted with hate propaganda due to their identity and gender. A peace agreement was finally signed in Arusha, Tanzania on the 4th of October 1993 between the then government of Rwanda and the Rwanda Patriotic Front. And the United Nations deployed a peacekeeping force, UNAMIR, to aid in implementing peace accords. As part of the 1993 refugee protocol under the Arusha Peace Agreements, Rwanda refugees were also granted full citizenship rights. However, this gave way to violent demonstration by the Interahamwe and Impuza Mugambi militias. And on February 1994, these militias saw terror in the outskirts of Kigali, attacking members of the opposition, but especially Tutsi with machetes, knives, and committing numerous rape of Tutsi women. The genocide campaign was set by them. And on April 7, as we all know, in 1994, the widespread killing began. That's why we are here today to remember. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eugene. Our next speaker is Dr. Alice Usaro Kadekezi. Dr. Alice has done a lot, and I'm not sure we even have time to go through all the qualifications that you have, but extremely impressed. Dr. is a scholarly practitioner who works bridges community and whose work bridges community and academia, and is interested in women, peace, and security. A global works in global politics. She co-founded the Conflict Management Center, CCM, at the University of Rwanda, where she is based and teaches peace, security, and development. She holds a BAD from the School of Global Studies, University of Gothenburg, Sweden, and a master's degree from France. A trained lawyer, she has taught criminology at the Law School of National University of Rwanda and had 4 years of legal practice in law firms in Paris and Brussels. She has offered occasional lectures in various international institutions around the world, including Harvard, Rwanda School of Global Studies, the London School of Economics, the University of Gothenburg, and many more. She has more than 20 years of experience working in post-conflict settings and construction, especially on UNSCR 1325 on women, peace and security, gender mainstreaming, gender-based violence and human rights, transitional justice and peace building and reconciliation. Please help me in welcoming Dr. Alice.
Excellency, Madam Ambassador of Rwanda in Nordic countries, Honorable Deputy Speaker of the Parliament, Honorable Members of Parliament, Excellencies, Head of the Diplomatic Missions, Representative of the Swedish Government, my fellow Rwandans, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. This may be the 30th time, still, KWIBUKA remains unique. As I speak, new mass graves are still being discovered. Today we come together to honor the continued sacrifice of survivors of the genocide against the Tutsi and the memories of those we lost. Time passes, but the children of the victims are facing the burden of the family story, as we saw it in the previous commentary. I feel for the children of the victims and survivors who now face the weight of the family history. The planners of the genocide against the Tutsi had understood that their plan could have been hard to implement without the prior elimination of individuals, members of the political opposition, and the civil society, mostly Hutu, who challenged the policies and politics of hatred. I honor the numerous Rwandans who refused to partake in the killings, sometimes at the cost of their own lives. I'm grateful to you who organized this event, joined us here, who were there from the start, and made significant contributions to the journey of rebuilding Rwanda and healing our souls. Tutsi were killed in the open through televised programs using rudimentary weapons. About what has been ranked by African Rights in '97 as the most rapid massacre of the 20th century, with 5.5 murders committed each minute between April and July 94. The killers invaded churches, schools, hospitals, offices to slay men, women, and children, chanting, "Our enemy is one. We know our enemy, it's the Tutsi." Approximately 75% of the target population were killed. Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, KWIBUKA is also a time to reflect deeper on the unique characteristics of the genocidal violence perpetrated against the Tutsi in Rwanda and the means and procedures that were used. Only by doing so can we hope to materialize the often broken promise of never again. I invite you to reflect on two aspects of the genocide against the Tutsi that continue to be devil. The long-time student of genocide that I am, the community level factors linked with widespread popular participation in the violence, as well as the factors connected with gender-based crimes in this context. The twin dimensions of state designed and orchestrated on the one hand, and popularly perpetrated genocide on the other, represent an essential context from which to understand Rwanda's journey to reconstruction and transformation today, before lessons be given. The groupings of perpetrators included those who planned and directed the genocide, controlled the forces armées rwandaises, guided the local Interahamwe, Mbuza Mugambi, militias and executioners. A fifth group, consisting of numerous men and women, educated or not, ended up killing many more innocent people than all other forces combined. They organized Ibitero, established barricades that prevented their neighbors from escaping death, and indicated who was the Tutsi and deserved to be killed. Hutu parents killed their children because their spouse was from the other side, a Tutsi. Hutu children killed the Tutsi mothers. Another essential aspect of the genocide perpetrated against the Tutsi was the widespread and systematic gender-based crimes that were of an extraordinary nature. Ladies and gentlemen, women and men were sexually assaulted and or mutilated with the assistance of field tools and large sticks. Genocide executioners made great use of sexual torture, mutilation, enslavement as weapons against Tutsi women, young and old. If spared, women were used as sexual slaves or taken as wives. Women were tortured both because of their identity and gender. Mutilations were common, with breasts and penises often being chopped off, punctured vagina with spears, arrows, or pointed sticks, or cut off or disfigured other body parts. In 1998, the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, ICTR, recognized that sexual violence was, and I quote, one of the means used in the process of destruction of the Tutsi group. The destruction of spirit, of will to live, and life itself. In 2011, the ICTR found Pauline Nyiramasuhuko, a woman and Minister of Women's Development, paradoxically in the interim government in power during the genocide, responsible for ordering, aiding, and encouraging rapes of Tutsi women during the genocide. The ordeal came to an end when in July 1994, the Rwandan Patriotic Army, under the leadership of its commander, now President Paul Kagame, defeated the genocidal government Despite the wealth of research already conducted on the topics, there is still pressing need to understand how so many ordinary people come to commit genocide against people they knew personally and with whom they were living side by side. How did gender-based violence come to be perpetrated in a systematic and widespread manner and with so much cruelty? Excellency, Madam Ambassador, distinguished guests, I leave you with these questions and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Our next speaker, swiftly. He is a member of the Rwanda Bar Association, a board member of Rwanda Initiative for Sustainable Development and Lead for Tomorrow Rwanda. Please join me in welcoming him on stage.
Excellencies, Honorables, ladies and gentlemen, before I make my submission, allow me to stand on the already established protocol. The 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, as you heard, was a result of colonialism's policy of divide and rule, Rwanda's post-independence divide politics, and the failure of the international community to stop it when it was possible to do so. The consequences of it were enormous. We have also heard about that. And the post-genocide government has been doing a great job in finding solutions in all spheres of life. In this presentation, there are two issues of a practical nature that are worth interrogating. First, what does it mean to prevent and to punish the crime of genocide that is talked about in the 1948 Genocide Convention that all countries are party to? At the international level, the ICTR, the UN ad hoc tribunal that was established in Arusha, for a period of 20 years, indicted 93 individuals, among them 62 were convicted. Some states in Europe and North America have used their state obligation to punish and have tried some fugitives found on their territories, extradited and deported a couple of others. However, there is still a big number of fugitives around the world. For example, the National Public Prosecution Authority has since 2007 issued over 1,000 indictments and international arrest warrants to 33 countries around the world. Second, and equally important, is the role of the international community in criminalizing the denial of the genocide against the Tutsi. Genocide denial has been a challenge to deal with, as prosecution of those suspected of genocide denial ideology is often considered as an attack on freedom of expression and speech. Denial is both the final stage of genocide and a cross-cutting crime that goes through all stages. Perpetrators will start by denying the preparation and planning of it. The moment they start committing some acts of genocide, they will hide evidence, shift blame, or claim self-defense. And the moment the genocide is over, they will start justifying what happened, minimizing the number of victims, or outrightly denying that the genocide ever occurred. We need to protect people's freedoms of expression and speech, but we also need to protect people's freedom from fear. because the victim's rights to the guarantee of no repetition is paramount to their well-being. In the book, Court of Remorse, Inside the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, the author describes how the denial of the genocide against the Tutsi was organized at the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda. He describes a meeting that took place in Nairobi in July 1996, immediately after the tribunal's first indictment. The meeting was organized by Luc de Timanman, a Belgian lawyer, who was in charge of affairs of the former president's family, to defend what he called the Hutu cause. The key goal, I quote, the key goal of this joint defense approach was to negate the genocide of the Tutsis. The plan was to state that the genocide had not occurred, that it was simply Tutsi propaganda. But if a genocide had taken place, the Tutsis were responsible for exterminating the Hutus. Ladies and gentlemen, in periods of war and genocide, several kinds of death occur. But what makes the crime of genocide different from other crimes is that whereas crimes like murder are about individuals' life, genocide is about a group's life. In other words, genocide is a denial of the right of existence of entire human groups, as homicide is the denial of the right to live of human beings. In Rwanda, Tutsi were targeted as a group for destruction. Rwanda's unconventional transitional justice has often been met with skepticism and open criticism. I would like to argue that the reason some people fail to understand Rwanda is their focus on norms and standards while ignoring the big picture of peace building. Many of those who have written about Rwanda have done so on the basis of mere theoretical knowledge, many of those again without having ever been to Rwanda or only for a very limited period of time. Others seem to be expecting reconciliation as an outcome of here and now, and less interested in small milestones. And some see the government of Rwanda as something that is separate from Rwandans, and expect the government to deliver certain goods and services of healing and transformation to Rwandans. This approach ignores the fact that those who occupy decision-making positions in the government are also Rwandans who deserve to be healed and transformed. The question we never answer is whether practice is wrong simply because it is not in line with the existing theory, or whether it means that there is something wrong with the theory itself. I want to end this speech with a small quote. Transitional law is always imperfect, deficient in some way, provisional, partial, not entirely democratic, not entirely fair, and not very clear. Certainly, Rwanda is not perfect, but no country can claim to be perfect either. I thank you.
Very much, Dr. Mrefu. One thing that I did not mention about Dr. Mrefu is that he worked with the KWIBUKA courts, the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, and the International Criminal Courts. So he has a lot of experience when it comes to the case of the genocide against the Tutsis in Rwanda. Our last speaker when it comes to Friends of Rwanda is in Sweden. Lars Aurelius has been serving as the Equality Ombudsman since December 2020. Prior to this, he held the position as Secretary General of the organization, led by Sweden. Between 2006 and 2012, he was Sweden's first ombudsman for children and students at the Swedish School of Inspectorate. Please help me join me in welcoming.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends of Rwanda, thank you for the opportunity to speak on this important occasion. Rwanda holds a particular place in my life. I grew up in Rwanda and feel a strong personal attachment to the country. The ethnic discrimination against the Tutsi which resulted in the genocide has impacted me profoundly. Children, friends from my childhood were killed during the horrible genocide. The genocide in Rwanda was carried out in a very short period of time, but it could not have happened without being preceded by a long period in which the Tutsi group was subjected to discrimination. The propaganda and the situation for the Tutsis became more severe each day that passed until it reached a point where they had become dehumanized. This aspect is something that I would like to draw particular attention to. In Sweden and all over Europe, there are harsher rhetorics in the public debate and voices advocating for ideas that stand in opposition to the principle of equal value of all people. Human rights are challenged and our institutions are questioned. If we do not pay careful attention to the tendencies of society where groups are pitted against each other, people's fundamental rights are no longer respected, and we're recreating a we and they, the situation can change rapidly. Therefore, it's now more important than ever that we act forcefully against these tendencies and developments in society. Because not acting risks leading to more severe and widespread discrimination, which in turn can have fatal consequences. Under my leadership as the Swedish Equality Ombudsman, I have changed my organization's focus to investigate more cases with the aim of providing redress for individuals that have been subjected to discrimination. Through investigating more cases, demand compensation to more individuals, and bring more cases to court, we send a clear message to employers and other duty bearers, but also to society at large, that discrimination will not be tolerated and that the state, through the Equality Ombudsman, through the courts, will protect those that are being subjected to discrimination. But to be able to act forcefully, we also need strong institutions. The consequences of weakened institutions are something we can see in Europe today. The structure and function of national equality bodies such as Equality Ombudsman differ in all Europe. And this has resulted in unequal protection against discrimination and promotion of equality across the EU. It is therefore a milestone that the EU have reached an agreement on legislation for binding standards for equality bodies which are to be adopted now in May. And I have been personally engaged in this work through my board engagement in the European Network for Equality Bodies. And I'm also happy to tell, in this year, in January, I traveled to Rwanda and met with the Equality Ombudsman in Rwanda. In fact, it's not an ombudsman, it's an ombudswoman, Madeleine Nidé, and we are now both together. We are engaging in creating a global network together through UNESCO, and the purpose with that is to strengthen the protection against discrimination all over the world. So this commemoration is an important reminder that the terrible horror of genocide can occur even in a time when our international legal order is underpinned by principles of universal human rights and fundamental freedoms. Discrimination and intolerance can be early warning signs of genocide. We saw that in Rwanda, and that is why it is so important that to take all possible measures to prevent and combat discrimination. Murakoze cyane.
Thank you very much, Lars. Get with us and not only get stuck in our past experiences. It is important to remember it, but Rwanda has been a shining light in showing that even with that pain and that trauma, we can still rise. So please join me in welcoming our next speaker, Isabel Mugeni, to give us a message of hope.
Honorable Embassy of Rwanda in the Nordics, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as we gather to commemorate the 30th anniversary of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, we, the youth of Rwanda, stand united in remembrance, reflection, and hope. The scars of the past are deep, and the pain remains tangible. Yet, it is our shared commitment to healing, reconciliation, and unity that defines our resilience as a nation. We recognize the immense strength and courage of those who survived, and we honor the memory of those we lost. Their stories serve as a powerful reminder of the importance of peace, understanding, and compassion. We are the generation that has grown up in the shadow of this dark chapter in our history. We have heard stories from our parents, our grandparents, and elders, and carry the weight of their experiences with us. But we also carry a vision for a brighter future, a future built on the principles of justice, inclusivity, and mutual respect. We are committed to learning from the past so that we may build a more harmonious and equitable society for all Rwandans. We stand against hatred and division. As we look to the future, we are filled with hope and optimism. We see a Rwanda where every individual is valued, where every voice is heard, and where every child has the opportunity to thrive. We envision a society that is united and in pursuit of peace and shared prosperity. On this solemn occasion, let us recommit ourselves to the principles of unity and reconciliation. Let us honor the memory of the victims by working tirelessly to build a nation where such atrocities can never happen again. Marcos.
With us being a bit late when it comes to time-wise, I hope you can bear with us just a few minutes over the time that we have stipulated in our program. But our next speaker, going directly to the Director General and Head of the Global Affairs at the Swedish Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Dag Julian Dagfeld. Please help me welcome him.
Honorable members of Parliament, honorable members also of the Swedish African Parliamentary Network, honorable Ambassador of Rwanda, Denise Kashumba, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends of Rwanda. Today we remember and pay our respects to the victims of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, in which over 800,000 people, at least 1 million is mentioned, in Rwanda were brutally murdered because of their ethnicity. It is an occasion for all of us to commemorate, even though it's painful, and to support those who survived and honor those who refused to take part and did their utmost to stop the genocide. Because remembering is painful, but it's important. This is what is also prevention. By reiterating, remembering, telling the stories is the best way to make sure, try to make sure that it's not repeated. So I'm deeply respectful of the pain. So I appreciate the value of these testimonies. Only a few weeks ago, I had the honor visiting Kigali and to visit the Genocide Memorial at Kigali, together with my State Secretary, John Jansen, where we not only had the chance to contemplate, commemorate, and ponder the massiveness, the enormity of this genocide or mass killing. It's difficult to, words feel very futile when you try to discuss the mass killings. But I've served in Israel, so I visited Yad Vashem, which is commemorating the Holocaust against Jews. I had the same feeling when visiting the Genocide Memorial in Kigali. It's an overwhelming sense, an overwhelming experience. It really gives the meaning to these words, never again. I might feel empty words are words, but when you've seen, you've sensed, you've interacted, listened to survivors, you know, it fills one with strong urge of the importance of making sure that it doesn't happen again. Well, while in Rwanda, I was had the honor to interact with President Kagame for more than an hour, and my State Secretary Joanna Jansen made sure to dig into some depth, trying to benefit from the insights and wisdom of President Kagame. And a major topic of the conversation and our interactions with officials, Rwandan officials in Kigali, was the topic of ensuring that it will not happen again. Because in Sweden, as you know, even though it's nothing, but Sweden has been doing its best to at least help Rwanda overcome the far-reaching consequences of this fathomless catastrophe that is the genocide. By cooperating on the topic of remembrance, being a partner of Rwanda in construction of the genocide memorial, and to continue our engagement also with the broader regional ambit, to try to make sure that it is not repeated on a smaller scale or massive scale, such as the reference was made to what's happening in Eastern Congo, Eastern Republic of Congo, where we as Sweden are involved, trying to contribute one way or the other to a more peaceful solution. Also, the Swedish government was represented this Sunday when KWIBUKA memorial was held in Kigali, where State Secretary, Prime Minister Johan Jakobsson represented the government, and was also equally touched and affected by the hurt and so on. And also coming back to Sweden with the conviction that yes, we have to remain engaged on all fronts where it's needed in order to do our little contribution as Sweden, as the EU, and as members of the United Nations to make sure that this is not happening. Also, I must say, from Rwanda, significant progress that has been made in rebuilding the Rwandan nation after the unspeakable tragedy of genocide deserves our respect and support. And also the way Rwanda contributes to, in a very efficient way, to peacekeeping operations in other parts of Africa is also something that made a very strong impression on me, seeing it for concretely. Sweden continues to stand with Rwanda in the endeavor to avoid catastrophes repeating. We have supported Rwanda in its reconciliation journey for more than 25 years, and we recognize the importance of bringing perpetrators to justice. As you know, several trials connected to the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda have taken place, also on Swedish soil. In order to achieve long-term stability and peace, the fight against impunity is key, because impunity, such as a phenomenon, is an abnormity and a source of injustice in many parts of the world. And this is important for the families of victims, for survivors, and for the country of Rwanda, and also for the local justice system. So to have any credibility, we must continuously, on a daily basis, work against impunity and for justice. The 1994 genocide against the Tutsi happened in Rwanda, but the nature of this horrible crime makes it a crime against all of us. The responsibility of keeping memories alive, which we've been doing today and are deeply grateful, is the best way to ensure that it's not repeated again, because we are, unfortunately, human nature is far from perfect, and we are flock animals and tend to be driven by narratives on a very emotional basis, which can lead to disastrous consequences if carried all the way, so which we see in the parts of the world today. So I thank you all for sharing this, allowing me to share this day with you. I don't know whoever.
Thank you very much, Mr. Julian Feld. My main keynote speaker, to be honest, is the Honorable Ambassador of Rwanda to Sweden, Her Excellency Dr. Yasumba. An amazing person whose commitment to this terrible history of Rwanda, history of genocide against the Tutsis, has been, for me, an experience, a learning moment since I met her. And I would like us to give her a round of applause and invite her to the podium here to listen to your words for this day. Thank you very much. Please give her a round of applause.
Excellencies, dear friends of Rwanda, my fellow Rwandans, it's with a heavy heart that we gather on this solemn occasion of KWIBUKA 30 to remember more than 1 million lives of men and women, all the young children and babies who were killed in 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. These innocent people were abandoned by the international community, as said by previous speakers. To my fellow survivors within the Rwandan community here in Sweden, to all members of KWIBUKA Sweden, led by my sister Josine, I see you. I feel you. Fossils, your testimony that you shared with us today, your courage to tell the story went through is a great contribution to the human and to combat the nationalism and genocide in Rwanda. I want to acknowledge all the guests who are here. I want to extend my gratitude to the Swedish government represented here, to the Swedish Parliament. I want to thank you, dear Mundu, and the Swedish Africa Parliamentary Network, as well as the Labour Party, for not only being here today, but for working so hard to open the doors of this parliament for us today, previous years. Thank you very much for standing up for truth and against discrimination. We see you and we really recognize you. My deep gratitude to you, Your Excellencies, and dear ambassadors and heads of diplomatic missions accredited to Sweden, and all members of the Swedish Parliament here present. Your presence speaks volumes for your unwavering support to our country. I'd like to take this moment to acknowledge all the true friends of Rwanda gathered here. To you, Ambassador Bent, who after 30 years chose to break the silence and give a testimony of the experiences you witnessed during your time living in Rwanda. I commend you for your words. Let your courage inspire us all to speak out against injustice, rather than to practice selective attention that gives room for many to become oblivious to the obvious truth. To you, Lars, my dear brother Lars, I really thank you for telling your story, sharing your experience in Rwanda, but also for the good work you do as the Swedish Ombudsman for Equality. I want to echo my sister Françoise, who ended her testimony with some questions. I also often hear from the international community, never again, every life counts, human rights, leaving no one behind. But do we truly stand by these words? I think the answer is no. If we genuinely believe in them, why haven't all governments taken legislative measures to criminalize genocide denial and to criminalize hate speech? Is it because your own country is not directly affected? If we genuinely stand by our principles, why do we witness so many instances of double standards? My country, Rwanda, will always remember brave men like Captain Baye Diagne from Senegal, who died a hero as he rescued many Rwandans from death during the genocide against the Tutsi. We will always remember and salute Romeo Dallaire from Canada, who was the commandant of the UN peacekeeping mission in Rwanda, and who raised his voice to prevent the genocide and to inform the international community and the UN that the genocide against the Tutsi was being prepared. We always salute Tumile Masire, former president of Botswana, who was heading a Navy Commission on Inquiry and who published a report saying that a genocide that we could have prevented is happening. And recognizing the international community's responsibility, saying that the genocide which occurred in Rwanda could have been avoided by those of the international community who were in a position and had the means to do so. These people lacked the will and not the means. We will also always salute Ingvar Carlsson, the former Swedish Prime Minister, who also published a report, and the report title was "It is on the entire United Nations system that falls the responsibility for not having been able to neither prevent nor put an end to the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda." We also commend the courage of the former ambassador from Nigeria, from Czech Republic, from New Zealand, who were the former permanent representative to the UN in 1994. They tried their best to raise their voices, but they were not heard. We also remember and salute late Claude Tusaidi, the RPF North American representative who was sent to New York to lobby the international community and to open their eyes, but he was not listened to. I want to thank Alice Jean Lefu, who came from Rwanda to support us and to tell the story of Rwanda. Mireille, who came from Rwanda to sing, She is a genocide survivor, but she had the courage to come and comfort us. Peter from Consoling School, we really appreciate your support and your friendship and the fact that you took your time to come and support us. So, awesome. We are proud and happy to be in these premises, but what matters more for us as Rwandans is maybe the way forward. We come here every year in April, and I think we can do more with this parliament. We can do more with a good collaboration with the Swedish African Parliamentarian Network, and everyone who cares for human beings. My questions are the following to the members of Parliament present here. How many times do you believe genocide can occur anywhere? How do you utilize your position, authority, and most importantly, your conscience and humanity to objectively analyze facts, root causes, and predictive factors? How much respect do you have for every human being, regardless of their skin color or continent? How many members of Parliament prioritize genocide prevention and criminalization of hate speech? How often have you dedicated adequate time and attention to crises in the continent other than your own? How often have we hastily adopted slogans or internet statements to blame government without verifying facts or using common sense? I've heard my colleagues, ambassadors posted in other countries, telling me that they spend much of their time explaining and talking about M23 and listening, hearing the government they are accredited to, asking them to tell President Kagame to stop supporting M23. I'm happy to be president of this country. Also, this country that agrees to disagree. I like my conversations with the African Department, especially you, Michael, and Daniel. I've got similar questions, but we've had an open discussion and in a very respectful manner. And I remember the last time we discussed this, I told you, when I meet my president, I will actually ask him why he's not supporting M23. And you smiled. And I think the day before yesterday, I heard my president answering a question from a journalist who was asking if the president is still having the same statement that Rwanda is not supporting M23. And I think you all followed this press conference. He asked her, go and ask these other government and your newspaper why they don't support these people. They are human beings. They have families. They have rights. Why don't you support them? That was the answer, actually. When I arrived in this country, I visited the research center. The first brochure I saw in the corridor was about peacekeeping and gender equality in countries, including Rwanda. And I was really surprised, negatively surprised by what I saw. We were talking about gender equality in Rwanda. You all know that Rwanda is among the champions of gender equality, not only by the proportion of women, 62% in the parliament, the first country in the world, but also across sectors in the government, more than 50%. In the justice sector, same thing. But the brochure I read
written by an expert, was saying that President Kagame appoints women because he doesn't like opposition, because women are weak, they cannot contradict him. And then I really asked them, do you think our Speaker of Parliament is a weak woman? A Speaker who has managed to establish laws around education, around health, and make Rwanda ranked one of the first countries in the health sector and in education, but also in security. Do you think this woman is weak? And then I asked them, do you think our community health workers, 65% of them are women, do you think they are weak? I didn't get an answer. But I think we have work to do. Sometimes I don't agree with these researchers. Some of them are bad will, but some of them are not informed. They are not just interested in doing new researches. They just put from the internet. There is another thing I want to touch base on, is our duty and responsibility to tell the truth and to tell our story. But as you can see here, there is no media. I got some questions as we were in the walk to remember by some friends of Rwanda. Did you invite the media? I told them they are not interested. They are not interested in this, maybe because they don't realize we are not here just to talk about Rwanda. We are here to share our sad history and our sad experience and our pain, and to avoid that this happens in any other country. And I was also asked, why are you hosted by the Left Party? And my answer was simple, why not? It's a political party that are recognized by the Swedish government. And then I said, as far as I know, their motto is justice and equality. We count on the Left Party, especially on you, through your chairmanship of the network party. I count on you that we come back to this premise with my fellow Rwandans, with my fellow ambassadors. I see the dean here and I recognize him, with my fellow Chinese ambassadors, to have a frank debate, to tell our truth, to brief you on what is happening in our countries, because we believe that Sweden can make a difference. I said the same 2 days ago in Denmark when we were commemorating the genocide against the Tutsi in the UN premises, because I know Denmark is campaigning for a seat in the UN Security Council, the same Security Council that sometimes fails us. So I feel these are good countries, and I believe in it. I think you can make a huge difference in the history of the world. And I hope that the event we had today is not just a one-day event. I hope that you go back with a strong message to serve the world. And I want to end by one word from my fellow Rwandans. The song we sang when we started this ceremony was saying, Humura Rwanda. It means, don't worry Rwanda. Don't worry. We have RPF, we have a disciplined army, we have President Kagame, who fight for Rwandans. And for these journalists who started writing to me, asking for appointment to come discuss elections, I told them, leave us up. These elections are up to us. If they are not interested to come and commemorate the genocide against the Tutsi with us and share this history, I don't see why they would be interested in President Kagame as a candidate or in the Rwandan elections. I also heard the Deputy Speaker speech, and I really acknowledge her presence here, even if she's not, she had to leave before. She said she said something about democracy. She said everyone should have the right to run as a candidate in elections. I want to add on something. Yes, everyone should have the right to run as a candidate in elections. Everyone who is eligible according to the country's national election committee's criteria. In Rwanda, we believe in this, but everyone is allowed to, except those who still have this genocide mentality, and these ones who preach divisionism and discrimination. And we have them, and we stop them from even trying, because for us, especially survivors of genocide against the Tutsi, it would be an insult to have these people even daring to stand for elections. But we have rules and laws that are really respected in the country, and we stand with our National Election Committee to make sure that they protect Rwandans from hate speeches that these people start with when they start their speeches, their addresses to the community. So I believe we are a particular country and we need to be respected for this. And I thank everyone who really respect this and who came here to support us. It means a lot that you are here, especially that you stayed until the end of this conversation. Thank you very much.
So I said our lives begin to end, the day we become silent about things that matter. And it's important we are silent, it's important that we speak, we remember. But not only that, when we say never again, we should mean it. Not only say it in words, but we should actually mean it in action. Never again is not only in words, but in action. And remembrance without resolve is hollow, as I mentioned earlier on. Awareness without action does not prevent these atrocities from happening again. So let's do everything possible. And I would say now we have a chance and we have a choice, because there is an ongoing genocide in Palestine, and we can actually learn our lesson from the genocide against Tutsis in Rwanda and speak out, not only speak out, but actually do something about it. With those words, I want to thank all of the speakers that came here today. I want to thank you for the testimonies. I want to thank all the friends of Rwanda that are here, all the diplomats that are here, ambassadors that are here. It is a great pleasure to have you here, and I thank you very much for your time, for being here, even though we ran out of time. Thank you so much.
And today we are here again. Tell us the significance of this event. KWIBUKA.
KWIBUKA has mainly a purpose. The purpose is to remember the people that we lost during the genocide against the Tutsi. And then it's also an occasion or an opportunity to pay our respect to the victims and to bring a message of hope and support to the survivors. And also it's a moment we inform the world about what happened in order to make sure that it will not happen again anywhere else in the world.
Today, one of the comments made on the podium was that there are people denying this event, that the enormity of the event. Why are these people denying it?
You know, denial is an integral part of every genocide. So there are definitely people, Rwandans, but also other foreigners supporting the denying that the genocide against Tutsi happened, or even not changing the facts. What we call revisionism, revising talking about, for instance, double genocide, which has never been recognized. So denial is a part of the whole genocide ideology.
Lastly, what do you expect from the Swedish government?
I expect many things from the Swedish government. First of all, as the president KWIBUKA asked, we would like to have a monument that reminds people, a place of education that reminds people about what happened to Tutsis in Rwanda, but also a place where people can learn about it. We ask them to enact laws that punish the crime of denial. And then, of course, we want Sweden to take a stand to be more included in the debate around what we can do in the world to prevent the crime of genocide happening in other countries.
When you talked on the podium today, you made mention of your experience in Rwanda during this period of pogrom, of genocide. Did you at any point feel that you were going to lose your life?
No, not really, because we were flying in and out with a minister, and ministers are protected. There is always a security detail around them. I have had one encounter which was not nice. I had a car accident in Butare in, I think, July 1994. And there I thought people are so angry with me that I thought I was going to lose my life. But that had nothing to do with the genocide.
Okay. But ranging from the enormity of this event, why do you think there are so much denials about this genocide?
As I said in the speech, I was baffled first at the speed with which they construct a story for self-justification. Why? Because I guess they want to get away scot-free and not be persecuted. It's a manner of well, you know, trying to get away from the law. I am baffled, especially at how evil can organize itself so quickly. I find that really unbelievable. But I cannot give another reason than that evil is there and evil wants to survive, and therefore they will construct a story which is false, but which they will use.
From seeing what happened in Rwanda that period, what will you say to the rest of the world to prevent such from happening again?
We should be very aware of the beginning signs of genocide. The first one is dehumanization. That is very important. We see it sometimes in some countries where people are called animals, which is wrong. That is where it starts. The second is the use of the media to spread wrong propaganda. The third is military preparations with paramilitary groups. And the fourth is, I think, also hate speech on the radio, mass media, and also creating a perceived threat from a group that might attack and saying, if we don't kill them first, they will kill us. So we must be very, very attuned to these telltale signs. There are 4 or 5, and if these occur, at least 3, we must be very, very careful to interpret them right and stop them, nip them in the bud. Very important.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. We heard you talk about this event and what happened to women during that period. Tell us, with what you saw, with what you Rwanda experienced during this period, do you think the world has learned any lesson from what happened, or they're still turning a blind eye?
Unfortunately, we are still living in a time of selective memory and ability to beat around the bush. It seems as we are very attracted by the idea of coming back when it's too late and to say, we wish we knew. I think we should, with the means we have today of information that are greater than what we ever have before, we should know what is happening and we should give it priority. When we have in our continent acts of cannibalism and discriminated killings of civilians every day on our WhatsApp, on our televisions, and hate speech spreading more than ever before, and we stand and we look and we do nothing. It is a shame.
30 years has gone by. 30 years, yet when people speak about this thing, it brings tears. It appears that people have not healed.
Healing process is what it is, a process. Healing happens differently for different people. But whenever we think about it, we remember. Tears are not bad. In certain African cultures, they would even say tears tears wash our sadness away. So we cry because we remember our loved ones. We cry because we know it could have been prevented. We cry because the world still turns a blind eye, not so far from Rwanda.
What will you want the world to do about this genocide in Rwanda?
To be a nonsense with genocide. To know that what has happened in Rwanda can happen elsewhere, not only in Eastern DRC, but in your respective countries. So, condemning hate speech that leads to genocidal violence, condemning genocide ideology, and supporting reconstruction and rebuilding genuinely is something that can help. Rwanda came out of the ashes. 30 years ago, we were pronounced dead as a nation, and many people waited to hear and come to the grave. But we stood up. We are here, and rather than coming and learn from where we found the strength anyway, most of the time we are given lessons. We are taught about survival while we have survived as a people.
Josine Kanamugire, you are one of the survivors of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsis in Rwanda.
Yeah, that's right.
This experience, how has it affected your life since you survived the genocide? How does it affect your life on a daily basis?
The genocide affected me with other survivors in many ways. The life never became the same after the tragedy. We lost so many family members, family structure, homes, hope, and so many other things. We are parents to children who will never ever see their grandparents. We are navigating in this world together with people who have no clue what happened, and that itself to navigate everyday's life, it's a challenge.
Are you the only one that survived in your family?
No, I'm not the only one.
Okay.
I have my two siblings.
But the others, no one could.
I lost my mother, my father, my two siblings, my sister and brother.
Oh my God. I'm so sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
At what age were you when this happened?
I was 15 years old.
15? To lose your family
15.
in such a gruesome manner.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry to hear that. I'm so sorry to hear that. Can I give you a hug?